You go to my YouTube wherever or my Instagram and comment just snatched, and I'll know you came from this podcast. So let me know. The BBL realtor Javier.
Hola, welcome to the MoneyChisme podcast. With me today is Javier Vidana, who is a licensed real estate agent based out of Phoenix, Arizona, who has been assisting home buyers since 2013. And he also provides awesome real estate educational content to over 160,000, subscribers on YouTube.
Thank you for having me. There's no bumps that time.
No, no bumps this time.
That's the
I was
seventh
like,
time she's had me do it because she said she keeps hearing me fart and bump, and she's like, "Okay, can you do that again? But please don't make any noise." So I was like, "Okay, don't move."
I think you were even holding your breath at that point.
Yeah. She's like, "What did you have for breakfast? Why do you keep farting and everything?" Yeah, my name's Javier. Like she said, you can call me Javi. I essentially was born and raised in Maryville, which is part in Phoenix, where primarily Hispanic. Well, to the Weddos, not known as a good part of town, but it was totally fine growing up in. Um, Really, my claim to fame is the videos I make for home buyers on YouTube. I think my where I'm coming from is someone whose parents were too busy surviving and didn't really have time to step back and just say, hey, this is how things are done, or this is what you should do with your money. This is what you should do. This is what you should buy if you're buying a house. This is what you should look at. So it's kind of things I had to learn on my own and then teach people as a young agent. And now in YouTube, just kind of get those lessons as a almost 10-year-old and doing this for 10 years old. I'm not 10 years old. I've been doing real estate for 10 years. Just been showing people now how the best way to do it to make better decisions.
I'm glad that you're on there because I remember having to buy my own house and it was just by myself and I learned the hard
What year
way
was
a lot
that?
of things. I bought my house in 2014, my first house.
Ooh, so that's when
And
things were cheap, but people were just nervous about the market, right? Because even though
exactly.
people always say, "Oh, I wish it was that cheap again," but people don't forget how nervous people were.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember because people always thought at that time they're like, why are you getting a house? It's just, it was just me. And
Hmm.
so and then I got like the house in like the boondocks. I got made fun of all the time. It's like, oh, you're like in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, well, this is what I can afford. And then I ended up selling that house for right as the market was coming up and everything was going crazy. So like I think I bought it for 143 and I ended up buying for 220 and like it needed work because I had it as a rental. And so I just let it go at that point. So but I struggled. I like that house, like it had drafts, like it was a house that a
It had
flipper
bats.
flipped. No, well that too actually
It
that
did have bats. Where'd
yeah,
you
I had
buy it in
like
Transylvania?
it felt like it because I'm telling you, it was like not necessarily too middle in the of nowhere, but like there was like forest and stuff like that around me. And so there was a few bats, not too much. It wasn't like infested with bats
What
or
made you
so.
want to pick buy based on your affordability? Because I feel like it's a lot of times people don't struggle with that mindset. What made you where'd you learn that from?
With my upbringing, they always taught me like, the typical like buy everything in cash, don't get credit cards or anything like that. So I did have like that just basis and I was scared too. Like I did not want to like struggle. I knew I wanted to have money to like buy furniture and stuff. So I ended up just figuring out what I can afford, which just ended up being basically what I got loaned anyways. So
Wow.
I think I got I think it was 150Ks because I didn't have like really a credit score anything besides my car.
How were your
They
parents'
they were
reaction when you bought a house? Were they more like panicked? Because I feel like a lot of Hispanic parents either they become very adversarial, like they're so like it's the funny thing is like they show up to the inspection and just like no, this isn't a good idea. It's almost like
yeah.
their concern and fear, which comes from a good place, becomes a very like negative thing. And instead of like being the support that we need, they become very like, oh, this is a bad idea. You're gonna do this, or were they more like supportive and like loving?
No, so like my parents had been pushing me to not like necessarily like pushing me, but that was like the goal, like, oh, go to college and buy your first house. So when I bought my first house, they were excited and, well, just excited. But now it's funny because now when I buy my rental properties, that's when the fear starts kicking in. It's like now because I guess if to them it's like I'm stretching too thin or whatever, I'm buying too many houses. And I was like, no, like each one it has its own rental income, so it's providing itself. So with my first house, they were excited, and then after that, it's like my mom's fear is starting to kick in. It's like, you're getting too much. Now you're putting yourself too much in debt and stuff.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, that was pretty interesting. Is that what you're seeing as you help people buy their home, that their like families are kind of like hesitant at this point?
I've seen, I mean, I've seen it all. But it's funny whenever I encounter a situation where it's a young couple. It's so funny. I used to be the youngest agent in the room. I used to be the 21-year-old agent or the 20-year-old agent. So it always like now when I say young, I actually have to mean like younger than me because I'm the old guy now. But yeah, no, I've seen the younger couple who is like looked at hundreds of houses online, looked at maybe 10 or 20 in person, finally get one under contract and just have this experience where they take their parents to the second showing, a third showing, and it's almost like their soul gets absorbed from their body, just seeing having to defend this, their reasoning why they're doing it, or very much like yeah, it becomes very much like a situation where they just everything is wrong with the for why are they doing this? They should be wait that a boom bada boom and so I always have to remind them like it comes from a good place. It's coming from a good
Yeah,
place, but unfortunately sometimes they're just not given the tools to analyze that. They're saying this because they care. And
yeah,
the people I help, they're buying because they can afford it. They're looking at their budget. They're not buying off what they can qualify for. So I remind them you've done the work, but it's coming from a good place. But I've also seen people who are very supportive and loving and just how proud of them they are. A lot of times, whenever we encountering situations like that where it's the former, a lot of times they just don't take their parents until it's already closed because
yeah,
they're like, I this is my decision. I'm not doing it for them. And I don't need them telling me it's a bad or good house. I'm doing my inspections. I'm doing all my due diligence. I'll bring them when we close for the party, And by then
yeah.
they really can't complain. And a lot by then is when they give you the just like anything, right? My dad didn't tell me the congratulations, I'm proud of you, son, until very well into my adulthood.
Oh
Not when
wow.
I needed
Yeah.
it when I was struggling.
Do you find that it's getting like that's that fear and that negative not necessarily negativity, but that hesitation, is it increasing now that everything's getting like pricier, the 7% interest rate, and the houses are like skyrocketing?
It's a great question. Also, do you is your light purple because your name is Violeta?
Yeah.
I should call myself Verde. It's that's a great question because no, it's always been there. It's always
Mm,
scary to buy. It's always like once again, they look in the past with rose-colored glasses. When you bought in 2014, when if you look at a chart of the prices, that was the best time to
mm-hmm,
buy because prices were at the lowest. Even then, people were terrified. Even then, people were scared. 2017, people were scared. There has always been people saying the market's going to crash. There's always been saying people it's the worst time to buy. So the
mm-hmm,
fear, as a matter of fact, is actually less now because it's almost like
mm,
they're like we're doing. They have to really analyze if they're ready to do this. So by the time they're actually
mm,
doing it, they're just like ironclad. Whereas before, they're like, yeah, I guess let's just go for it. It's about the same. Like when you bought you you paid 150, so your payment was probably under $1,000, but it probably
mm-hmm.
costs about the same to rent, right? And it's
Yeah.
just people always just bought because it's the same price. If I could rent it, if I rent a house, it's the same price. It's cheap. What is might as well. They don't really think
Mm-hmm.
about the consequences. The market was still going up. It's fine. Let's just go for it, and then it paid off for them. But now
Yeah.
people really have to analyze it, and it's really a blessing. I know it's a very privileged thing for me to say, and my heart goes out to the people that can't buy right now. But having to really analyze if you're ready to buy and you can really afford it is a lot better than just buying when things are cheap and just let's just see if it works out, because you have to really think about it, and because people are thinking so thoroughly, there's almost less hesitance when they're buying. But that fear is always there. That concern is
Yeah.
always there. There's nothing new about that. The parents are always concerned. They're concerned. The buyer's remorse always hits, no matter what price point, what time of the market. That's always there. And if you prepare for that, you'll be ready for it.
Besides just, ensuring that I'm not buying like a top of my budget, um, I really didn't consider anything else with home buying. Like I just bought a house because like that was the thing to do, right? At least with my family, that's what they push to, to get a college degree and go buy your first house. And so that's what I did. And but I didn't consider anything else that goes along with it, and I had to learn these things as they came up, like especially buying a house that was flipped and it had a lot of like not too many issues, but like, one winter in Virginia, like I froze my ass off because they didn't, like seal around the doors, and I couldn't figure out why I was freezing myself, and my like my bill was so freaking high and I was freezing my ass off. And then I finally figured it out that it was because around the doors they didn't, like, it was a huge draft. So because they cut corners on that. So and that those things end up like costing, and so I learned a lot through my first and my second house. And so I feel that, yeah, you're right that now these buyers are like analyzing more what they can actually afford rather than just going out and buying like the pretty house that has all the bells and whistles and not thinking about anything else that they need to cover. Like, what is some of the things that a first time home buyer should be analyzing, especially now, so that way they don't put themselves at risk?
I think the first thing you have to do is you have to look at what you're going to qualify for versus what you can comfortably afford. I think you have to also realize that the real estate agent and the lender are there to sell. They're not there to advise. They're not financial advisors. So if you, a lot of times, especially people in our community, we kind of put agents and lenders on a pedestal. You go to your deal, your dad, hey, I'm gonna buy what I want to ask some of you advice about a house. Go talk to your primo, and you go talk to your primo, and he's a real estate agent, or you go talk to people that are in the business. But the reason there's if you look up what the license is called for a realtor, it's actually called a real estate salesperson license. For a
Mm,
mortgage loan officer, it's the same. I don't know if it's called salesperson for mortgage, but either way, they're there to sell you a house and they're there to get you a mortgage. They're not there to advise you. So, not going to them for advice is probably the first thing, and I'm saying that as a real estate agent. Doing your own research on how to qualify. It's very easy to find out what you can qualify for. There's calculators online. There's videos you can watch. I have one on my Patreon. You just go, you will really just get 43% of your gross income, which is your pre-tax income. You subtract any monthly debts, and that's it. You qualify for that amount. And then you get that number and you think, okay, that's what they're going to qualify me for, but what can I afford? So then you go, you get your net income, which is your post-tax income. You get 25 to 33% of that, and that's the range that you should be able to afford. 25% if you're more conservative. That's the old school rule. Nowadays, I believe going to a third of your net income is a little more flexible, especially people that live in the city like me. And you get those two numbers, and if it doesn't work where you live, then you can't buy. It is that simple. Either we move to a different location, you move to the outskirts like you did, or we build other things. I tell people in California all the time, I would rather have multiple six-figure investment paths, my retirement built out, all these different money like places to put my money than an ownership of a house. If I
mhm.
die right now, I'm leaving my family a lot of debt with my mortgages. People, if you're in California and you pass away, that rent, yeah, you have a place that you rent, okay, but you've been able to build out your different investment avenues, and you're much. That's okay. It's not. You don't have to be a homeowner to be successful. If you're in a place where you can't afford, build other things out. And then if that itch to become a homeowner is so strong, then you have to. I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to move, or you're gonna have to go somewhere a little further out, or this wait for the market to crash obsession that people have right now. I understand where it's coming from, but it's just it's just it's like you're waiting for something negative to happen that's going to affect hundreds of thousands of people in a very negative way for
Hmm.
you to become a homeowner. And it's just not the energy I would want to put out. It's like
Hmm.
if you're in love with someone but they're engaged or they're married, that's like, do you really want to spend your time and energy waiting for something to collapse for you to get that person? You know what I mean? So spend that energy elsewhere, build out your other investments, and build your time. And if that home ownership itch is so strong even after building that, then you need to probably move to a different area, and it's just the way it is.
What is it that you're helping or that you see in your buyers that is helping them get over that fear of going out there and buying their house, regardless of the market?
The common thing that I'm seeing with people right now, in spite of this market, and of course, I'm not talking about budget. They can not talking about savings. You know, they have their emergency funds, they have their savings for their down payment, they have all these, so they're very financially savvy people. Um, or they are have an emergency fund, but they're using some kind of assistance or some kind of new build program where they're getting a low rate, et cetera, et cetera. But they're taken care of on the back end. The common thing is there's like a strong why. There's a strong reason why they want to own.
What other tips can you give these new home buyers?
I mean, when I give advice like that's so interesting because like my advice wouldn't apply to someone living in like somewhere like California or something, right? Where like, oh, buy under your means and everything, but it's like, yeah, everything's
Mm-hmm.
expensive and selling above list, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, the best I can say is just really knowing the numbers and the data of the areas you're buying in, like before you make an offer on a house, pulling up the comparables, pulling up the data for the zip code, really going into the weeds of like where is the city going value wise, and doing your best to find that fair market value for a house and buying it cheaper than that number.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take some resistance, of course. You know, that means you have to find a house that doesn't have multiple offers, and sometimes the seller's not going to go for it. But if you make enough offers that are not super like lowbally, but like, hey, your house is selling for 350, but you know, it's been on the market for 50, 60 days. We'll give you 335 with 15K of concessions, or 340 with 15K, 10K concessions, or 330 no concessions. Like really hitting them lower, um, I think is the goal, because you know you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's gonna happen with the market. You don't know if there's gonna be any more downturn. So the best way of protecting yourself is doing that. But of course, don't do that without knowing you can afford the house, knowing you can, you know, do all those things.
Like what areas, what markets do you service and how can they reach out to you?
If you happen to be buying or selling a home in Phoenix, the general Phoenix, you know how it is when you live in a big city. Like you live in Los Angeles, but there's like seven other cities around Los Angeles. But you don't want to say, "Oh, I live in this city." You just say like, so I'll say, "Hey, anywhere in Phoenix." But obviously, there's a lot of cities around Phoenix. I'm available basically in the general Metro Phoenix area. If it's an hour away from Phoenix, I'll probably service that area. So East Valley, West Valley, North Phoenix, South Phoenix, I cover it all. Buying or selling, love to help you. But other than that, just continue supporting the podcast. Because anything to do with money chisme, just continue to learn and educate and grow. And I think the challenge I have for a lot of us, I'm assuming it's majority Hispanic folks,
Mm-hmm.
is when we see another person, another fellow Hispanic or Latine person succeeding, let's not be a crab and bring them down. You know, let's support each other. I feel like the biggest issue that we have in our community and our culture is we tend to you know, we don't support each other. We see someone doing good and we start feeling envy. We start feeling, you know, that scarcity effect. And that's because we were given so little as a culture, right? We're given this little space, this little like thing, and we feel like we have to fight for when someone takes something because they're taking what's there's so much out there, and someone can succeed and do great and still leave enough room for everyone else. So let's do a better job supporting each other's whether it be podcasts or Instagram posts. You know, if your friend just got a BBL, him or her, go support. Hey, congratulations on the BBL. If they just got a house, if they just got a car, hey, you know, congrats on it. Let's work on the envy. You know, me speaking as well, talking to myself. I really want a BBL. Anyways, where am I going? You know, we do a better job as a culture helping each other out, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll have all your stuff linked down in the description, and
Make
definitely
sure to
go
put the
check out
BBL
your
donation link as well,
yeah,
please. Enough money
yes,
for the BBL.
GoFundMe. GoFundMe for that for his BBL.
The BBL realtor, Javier.
Hey, you know what? That would be some branding.
If I show
You'll
up to the
stand
show
out.
and just snatched, just completely snatched, you just know that was because thanks to you guys. If you
Thank
guys
you
found me
again.
on this podcast and you go to my YouTube wherever or my Instagram and comment just snatched, and I'll know you came from this podcast. So let me know.
All right. Well,
All right,
thank
see
you
you
so
guys.
much for being here, and I will see everyone in the next episode. Bye.